Hey, we're going to try this one more time going live talking about should I do marathon 3 weeks after doing a full Ironman. So just got done doing the Kansas City Marathon. Did Ironman in Chattanooga about 3 weeks ago, September 29th. So just want to go over a few comments about my thoughts on doing a kind of large race on top of a large race. I've done last year, I did Ironman Chattanooga, and then 4 weeks later did Ironman Florida. And I think went pretty successful. Um, this year I did Ironman Chattanooga, and then 3 weeks later ran the Kansas City Marathon. Was I thought successful. I ran a PR for marathon distance, but it was very uncomfortable. Training was more for Ironman and not necessarily for a full marathon, so that kind of makes a difference in my opinion. But I want to go over some quick tips on timing of big races. So you have to consider what types of races you're doing. You do an Ironman to Ironman, you do an Ironman to Marathon, Marathon to Ironman. It does make a difference. I think Ironman to Ironman is probably, in my experience, had 4 weeks between. A little bit more doable. Ironman to full marathon is doable. Like I said, I was a little bit uncomfortable for the marathon, but in retrospect, if I'd have spent more time doing the run work, I just kind of shorted. I did kind of the bulk or the kind of the nuts and bolts of the main running plan. Kind of took off some of the running, for the swimming, biking. It was just, that's just the way it goes with time. Full Ironman to full Ironman is a little bit more doable because, I mean, you're kind of training for the same thing. It's kind of one training cycle for 2 events. I think if you do a full marathon and you go 3 to 4 weeks and then do a full Ironman, you're going to have a little bit more trouble. Just because in a marathon, people are more tempted, you're just going to run it with a little bit more energy, a little bit more effort than you would be doing a full Ironman because you're battling a lot more than just muscular endurance. For a full Ironman race, you've got mental fatigue, you've got energy issues, you got all kinds of other stuff going on. So it's doable, but I would say going from Ironman to Ironman was a little bit more workable. But anyway, so you have to consider your training consistency over time. If you've been training consistently over a long period of time and year after year, you've done this was Ironman number 7 for me and marathon number 14. So it's not my first rodeo. So if you went out there and this is the first time you're going to attempt it, it's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable. But if you're consistent over time doing long course events and doing the training, it becomes more and more doable to be able to handle that kind of load for your body, especially if you've done it over time consistently without injuries. So that's always kind of good. So what's my next one? Train for that schedule. So like I said, are you training for that? Are you planning on doing 2 Ironmans? Are you planning on doing an Ironman then a full marathon? You can adjust your training and load to make sure it's matching what you want to do for those events. Are you going to train, if you're just training, I'm going to run an Ironman and you just think, I'm going to attack on a marathon. But if you're not planning that in your Ironman run up too, then you need to kind of reassess your training plan, make sure you're on the right path. Do you have enough taper and recovery between? So 2 weeks minimum, man. That first week you shouldn't really be doing much after an Ironman or a marathon. You gotta let the legs recover. Even 2 weeks is kind of cutting it close because that second week you're just kind of able to start maybe running again, but then you go up and you do another event. You're not going to get much of any kind of training in between those 2 weeks. 3 weeks, at least you've got 1 week kind of off, second week kind of gingerly get back into it, and that third week to kind of build up a little bit before you go back into the next race. So you always got to look at which is the A race. So you're going to gut yourself for the full and then kind of do the marathon on the back. You gut yourself for a marathon and do an Ironman later. You're going to gut yourself for the first Ironman or gut yourself for the second Ironman, or you're just looking to are you just looking out to have a good time and just to finish? If you're going to finish, it's very doable. If you're going to try to Boston qualify and, you're 20 minutes short of qualifying your last marathon last year, I think you're going to have a large mountain to climb, no pun intended, when you're going to go out there and try to Boston qualify for a marathon and then go and turn around and do a full Ironman. I think you're going to pay the price on that one. Injury status. Are you injured? Don't. If you're trying to train up and ramp up for this stuff, just be careful because if you start getting injuries and stuff, You're very susceptible those weeks in between big, large events. You're going to run into problems. Your injuries are going to pop up, and they're going to be big, and they're going to be life size and huge, bigger than life, and they're just you're going to run into problems if you've got injuries. So pick one or the other if you're injured and get it done, and then do some recovery or find a different kind of strategy altogether. To have backup plans. Kansas City Marathon, if anything happened, at mile 6, there was a turnoff, and there was even a turnoff for a 10K. So I could have turned off earlier if I didn't feel it, if something wasn't bothering me, if I had issues. I could have turned off for the 10K, I could have turned off for the half marathon course, and just kind of gone in and said I need to switch down to the lower course, at my finish time. So, is that an option? If you're doing back-to-back Ironman races, mentally, are you prepared if you come into T2 that you're having problems and it's obviously not going to be a big day, instead of running yourself into the ground or the medical tent? Is there an option to pull out at T2, or is it a loop run to where that first loop, if you're not feeling it, it sucks, but if you're being aggressive with your training plan and you're trying to do two full Ironman races, 4 weeks apart, have a backup plan, because you don't want to be injured. You don't want to go to the medical tent. You don't want to go to the hospital or something worse. So, is there a contingency plan for these races you're doing? Some races are point to point. You've got no. I mean, you could stop probably at an aid station, get a ride, sag back into the finish line, but it is convenient if there's a race you're doing. You can kind of have a backup plan. So the last one is your support system on board with this? If everyone is kind of against you and saying, hey, I don't think this is a good idea, and if they've got valid reasons, kind of listen to them, let them be the sounding board, the voice of reason. If they say in the end, it's like, I think you've got too many injuries, I don't think this is a good idea, or you've been putting off your whatever surgery, or you've been putting off going to see the doctor for this, that, and the other. If they're not on board and they've got valid reasons, kind of listen to them, don't be pig-headed. But, if people are just like, yeah, I don't, if it's a acquaintance at work and they're like, I don't think that sounds like a good idea at all. It's like, well, this isn't your lifestyle, and, you can kind of push them off to the side. But if your main support system isn't backing you up, it's going to make race day a little bit more difficult. It's going to make doing those back-to-backs a little bit more difficult. So just, be prepared if that's if your support system is just not there for you, that, do they have valid reasons, or are you going to have to put on your own and have the mental fortitude? So that being said, I think next year I'm actually going to try to, and I'm going to enter the lottery for the Chicago Marathon, not necessarily sign up, but hey, did pretty decent Kansas City Marathon 3 weeks after doing a full Ironman, so I might actually train for a marathon for next year. So anyway, just letting you know, these are some tips and thoughts I had as I was doing the race and got done, and kind of want to share it with you guys. So that's kind of a tip for a Monday for Facebook Live. So we'll talk to you guys later.